Boom.
Yes. Here we are.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. Happy Thanksgiving, Sin.
Yes. Happy Thanksgiving to you too.
It's almost that time.
That's
and
right.
Lots of people are getting ready to get on the road and
Yes.
travel a little bit and go see their loved ones and everything. So
that's exactly right.
I think what we're getting ready to do now, the guest that we're having on our Engines Off podcast now, is going to be kind of appropriate.
Yes. Yes. In a subtle kind of way. We want to talk about it. You know, a lot of times we don't want to, but we're kind of keeping you guys in suspense. But we, something that we need to talk about, we need to address, we need to try to make it as simple as possible for people. And that is
the advanced planning.
The advanced planning. The
for
advanced
healthcare.
directives. Yes, all of those things that people tend to just kind of push off. Don't think about until they really need to think about it. And sometimes it can be too late. Or sometimes it can be not, the information is not where you need it to be.
That's a big one. Yeah,
that is the big thing.
Yeah. You're traveling this holiday and the upcoming holidays to go see your loved ones. Now would be a good time to talk to them about that.
That's exactly right. You're going to be all together and can make some decisions.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and bring Dr. Mirarchi on.
Yes,
do a little quick introduction here. So today we are thrilled to have Dr. Mirarchi, Ferdinando Mirarchi, a leading expert in palliative care. And palliative is going to show up a lot in this. And I'm going to tell you right now, I have a hard time saying that word, and patient safety as the Chief Executive Officer and Chief Medical Officer of USASCS, Mideo LLC, and the newly appointed Chairman of the National Palliative Care Committee for USACS. Dr. Mirarchi brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to our conversation. Dr. Mirarchi is renowned for his groundbreaking research on advanced directives, particularly the Triad Research Series. His work has shed light on the confusion surrounding living wills, DNR, and POLST, post orders, highlighting a critical patient safety issue. This research has also led to the development of Mideo, which is what we'll be talking.
That's right.
A revolutionary video advanced directive in portable physician's medical order that aims to improve clarity and accessibility in end-of-life care. Beyond his research and clinical practice, Dr. Mirarchi serves as a reviewer for prestigious medical journals and is the author and fellow of several professional organizations. His expertise in emergency medicine and palliative care makes him a valuable asset to the field. Dr. Mirarchi, welcome.
Yes. There he is. Hey, hi.
Hi, Dr.
We are so happy to have you here.
Yeah, it was good to talk to you. We've had the opportunity to talk to you a couple of times, and boy, I learned something new every time I talk to him.
Yes, absolutely.
I love it. And we've actually reviewed your Mideo product, and we love it. So
yeah, we really do.
Yeah, but first we want to start off with introduce yourself and tell us a little bit why this.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Well, again, thank you for having me. It's happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And a lot of people seem to think that this is the best time to have these conversations around the Thanksgiving holiday. So I want to give everybody food for thought and really center that food for thought around patient safety. And maybe this could be utilized by many people to actually just facilitate those conversations.
Right.
So by trade, I'm an emergency medicine physician. I practiced for over 25 years in emergency medicine. I used to be the Northern Tier Chief of Emergency Service for UPMC until I went full-time with Mideo and US Acute Care Solutions to develop a new clinical service line around what we did in research. What we've developed is the first evidence-based platform to make sure that we align patients' wishes with the treatment that gets provided. And that's pretty important because most of my work is centered around the negative aspects of advanced directives, meaning where we screw up. And I will tell you, I've screwed up. This is why I've gotten touched by this type of work and why I decided to do research in it and why I continually push forward to make sure that we develop new tools for patients to really hone down on being patient safety advocates rather than paper pushers. We're doctors, we're not paper pushers. And we want to make sure that doctors actually understand these types of documents.
That's fantastic.
That's awesome. Some people were probably wondering, okay, so we know about the documents, we know about what we have to usually fill out, especially if we go to the hospital, things like that. Tell us a little bit about what you have in store. It's totally different. It's totally different. And we kind of went through the process and like you said, we really like it.
Yeah.
So let me start with a story first, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So I was an intern, and I was a pretty good intern coming up 20 some years ago, right? And I was on a night shift, and I was in an ICU, and I was taking care of a 55-year-old lady, a mom, who essentially had a heart attack, and we were getting ready to treat her. And I saw her essentially go into cardiac arrest. Now, different from a heart attack, right? Cardiac arrest is a complication of that heart attack. Often people think a heart attack is cardiac arrest. It's not the same, but they can be combined together. So this mom was critically ill in front of me. Again, 55 years old. I'm 54 today.
Wow.
So this mom went into cardiac arrest, and I ran over there so fast, and I was going to shock her chest and save her life. And I was met with resistance by the nursing staff, and they were flashing a piece of paper in front of me, a yellow piece of paper, screaming, "She's a DNR, don't shock her, don't shock her." And I became paralyzed completely. Didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And essentially, this lady's dying in front of me.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, well, actually, I wasn't lucky. She was lucky. She was lucky. A cardiologist happened to be going through the ICU at that same moment in time, saw what was transpiring. Guy literally pushed me aside, took the old fashioned paddles, gelled them up, shocked her chest. And she woke up and she was talking to us.
Wow.
Okay?
I got goosebumps.
Had that be me alone, she'd be dead. Right. Her husband wouldn't have a spouse. Her kids wouldn't have a mom.
Right.
And it was because of a document that I really wasn't prepared to interpret or interpret correctly.
Right.
And the document actually ended up being a living will, not a do not resuscitate order. So in and of itself, we have lots of confusions around these documents.
Right.
Now, she lived, okay, and I went on into emergency medicine, and literally the last night of my emergency medicine residency, and I was at a level 1 trauma center, right, in Pittsburgh, a really big academic institution. So we're supposed to know these things,
right.
But we had a 60-year-old gentleman come in, and he was septic. And for those of you who don't know what sepsis is, it's an overwhelming infection, and he couldn't talk to us. And paramedics rolled him in, and they came in with a living will. And I basically said, well, I'm not going to make this mistake twice, right? I said, I treated him very aggressively. I put tubes in him. I put him on a ventilator. 20 minutes later, his wife shows up, and she was pretty upset, and, started to give some information that he was an end-stage hospice patient, and she just couldn't take care of him at home anymore. And he was dying, and she didn't know what to do. So now I made a mistake on both sides of the equation. Right. I almost ended a life by not treating one, and I saved a life that really just wanted to die at that point in time and be
what a predicament. Dr. Mirarchi, whenever we talked to you, one of the times we talked to you, you had mentioned, I think this is kind of popular, people have heard of the phrase widowmaker before, and you talked to us about a case about the widowmaker. Can you retell that story about widow? Tell us a little bit about what is a widowmaker for those that aren't familiar with it, and then tell us the story again.
Sure. And if we could put up that slide, that would be great.
Okay.
So this is basically a slide that I want people to think of before we show this case. Okay. So first off, when I first put this talk together a few years ago, my kids didn't even know who this was on the screen. And that kind of really that
makes you feel old.
So that's just in and of itself. But, here you got Charlie Brown and Snoopy, right? And Charlie Brown's kind of in his downtrodden spot, and he's always pontificating, someday we're all going to die. But then Snoopy's the positive light on this, and kind of brings it to reality. True, but all the other days we're not, and you're going to live.
Right.
And that's what we want to do for people. We want to make sure people who have got good quality of life and longevity are safe in traversing through the medical system with these types of documents. And we also want to make sure that when it's time for them to make a decision to allow their natural dying process, that we allow it to be their decision, not our decision. And if we could show that next case, you asked me about a widowmaker, the next slide. So under this squiggly line here is an EKG, okay? And there's a little kind of hump in that EKG. That's a widowmaker type lesion, okay? And about 30% of the time, that person's going to go into cardiac arrest, just just immediately, kind of like that picture or that case I talked about.
Right.
And that squiggly line is the cardiac arrest.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when people have advanced directives, they have these check boxes here that say, I do not, I do not, I do not.
Yeah.
And when it comes to a moment in time where you have to make a decision, we typically reflect back to what these documents or what we perceive these documents to say. So whether it was an ICU, go into the ICU, whether it was to treat this heart attack. Okay.
Right.
Now I'd ask every one of you here, okay, yourselves included, or people in the audience here, to think about if you were to have a heart attack right now and what you're doing right now, do you want me to save your life or do you want me to let you die?
Yeah.
And as you think about that, I want you to think about the last thing we think about is that document showing that glimpse of those do not check boxes.
Right.
And you then got to make a decision for you.
Right.
Okay. So, and that decision oftentimes is a very scary decision and has very scary outcomes, because this is what the data shows us. 50% of the time across the countries, physicians wouldn't save your life at this point in time. Okay. In the back of an ambulance rig, 64% of paramedics at that point in time in that same scenario would not shock your chest to save your life.
Based on that piece of paper.
Based upon that piece of paper.
Wow.
And their thought, we call it the lethal glance of what they thought they saw and inferred at that moment in time.
Right.
And that is nothing more than a guess.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a guess by now a medical stranger. I mean, if you think about it, I don't know you both, right? You know, I know you because we came through the Mideo process, but if I were to see you in an emergency room before I met you, or the next person in an emergency room or a hospital or a trauma bay, they don't know you. Okay. So they're medical strangers to you. And they have to make decisions for you that oftentimes are life-changing decisions or life-altering decisions, sometimes in seconds, sometimes in minutes. Sometimes we're lucky enough to get a caretaker or a healthcare agent to kind of give us some guidance, but oftentimes we don't.
Right.
So we're in the 21st century, as I said, we got to figure this out to be safer for patients, because this is a broken process. And the reason why you don't hear about this process just overtly is because we need advanced directives. We need to give people a way to actually communicate what they want, but we also need them because they're very good at helping us curtail cost in medical care. And truthfully, most patients don't want to receive painful medical care when they're at a point in life where they're not going to survive, or at a point in life where they don't have a good quality of outcome. But again, we have to make it so that it's their decision and them guiding us, the clinical people, as opposed to us just making these inferences or this guess on what we think we want as a patient.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's just so scary.
It is. It's somebody. Yeah. It's somebody had mentioned it seems so arbitrary and scary.
Yeah.
So walk us through. For most people, we come across those advanced directives maybe when we go into the hospital for some kind of a procedure, and we really don't give it much thought.
That's right.
So give us kind of an overview of what kind of papers or documents, at least initially, are you talking about? So you've got the advanced, what is the advanced directive? And then we had mentioned the POLST in the introduction. Kind of talk a little bit about those and how can we help our audience identify what that document is?
Sure. So let's start with the advanced directives, or what typically happens in someone's estate plan. And mind you, there's over 200 million of these documents in existence.
Wow.
You know, so I mean, they affect everyone. Even though they say that we don't want, or we need to get more of them done, they want everyone age over 18 to have one of these done. But the reality of it is there's a lot of them that exist today, and the reason they exist is because they've been propagated and pushed and advocated for. So typically, people get them from, they see their attorney, right? They have some life-altering event. They got married, they had kids, something, and they get an estate plan. And in that estate plan comes a will, a living will, a healthcare power of attorney, and a financial power of attorney. Okay. And of course, a bill, right? You're going to get a bill for that, quite frankly. So that's how most commonly living wills get created. But then we also made them available, right? So we made them available on internet sites. We made them available through organizations, and people just download them and they sign them. They sign them not really knowing the implications of them and so on. And then you go to a hospital, okay? And you get asked, do you have a living will? right? And there's a reason they ask you if you have a living will. It's part of Medicare compliance that we have to ask this question, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And typically what ends up happening is you'll go into a hospital for an elective procedure or an emergency, but typically an elective procedure, and you'll get asked, how do you want treated in cardiac arrest?
Right.
And most people will say, well, I don't want to be kept alive on machines.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a statement that someone's trying to get through a screen on. And oftentimes that statement leads people to believe they're supposed to check the DNR box on that screen. So we know that if you have an advance directive, they get misinterpreted as do not resuscitate orders and end up in your medical records. We know that how you answer questions like that, as far as how do you want treated in cardiac arrest, your answer gets misinterpreted and ends up in your medical record as a do not resuscitate order. We see that 25% of the time.
Wow.
And then when we come across do not resuscitate orders in medical records, the research shows us that about 40% of the time they're inaccurate, meaning the person wanted some degree of aggressive care to begin with.
Right.
And then today we have this other thing called a POLST form or a medical order. It used to be called a physician's order for life-sustaining treatment. Now it's called a portable order for life-sustaining treatment. Some states call it a medical order for life-sustaining treatment. They're all different shapes, colors, sizes, and so on to them. And the reality of it is that they get misunderstood as well. So people are trying to get you to sign one of these forms to document your resuscitation choices, when in reality they shouldn't be, because it's putting you at risk. When in reality, what you need is an advance directive.
Yeah.
And mind you, I'm the person who says paper is legal. It does what it's supposed to do. But we got to get better than paper. We need to see what you want. We need to hear what you want. We need to see why you said what you want. And we need to make sure that we're making the right care for you. Because I'm going to assure everyone here, sometimes what you see on TV as far as us bringing people back to life, I'm going to tell you, death is pretty permanent. Like we can't bring people back from the dead.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure that we get this right before, we decide to not provide care and treatment to save your life.
Yeah. So before we go on to and talk a little bit more about the Mideo process itself. So I've got somebody in the audience, Janice has asked me, she's saying that she has her POLST and the advance directives, that they're done, and wants to know if that's a good idea. It feels like, it feels like it's not really a one and done kind of conversation. It needs to be something that's ongoing and checked in regularly. Can you address that and then kind of segue into the Mideo and why your product helps have that conversation in an ongoing way?
Yep. So let's first say if she has a POLST, then I'm concerned. And I would be very concerned if she had a POLST, if she wasn't expected to die within a year or two, or had some sort of advanced serious medical condition, because that form will put you said Janice, right? That form will put Janice at risk, because someone's going to think that she has an advanced medical condition that she's made decisions about, or an end of life type of condition or terminal illness. That form is not. Sorry,
tell us what that stands for again, Dr. Mirarchi. POLST. What does it stand for again?
Yep. So POLST is a portable order for life-sustaining treatment, or a physician's order for life-sustaining treatment, depending on the naming convention in your state and so on. Okay. And again, it was typically created for people that were expected to die within 6 months to a year. Then it started to advance. It started to then come into serious illness. And now practices are starting to use that form inappropriately on healthy patients. Healthy patients don't need that form. Early medical illness does not need that form. Maybe an advanced serious illness, for sure at end of life, that form would be appropriate. But quite frankly, you need to talk to someone to really figure those out. Most of your general practitioners today are really just getting you to try and complete forms because they're being challenged with a metric to say, get these forms done on your patient. Not to really have good conversations around these forms and use tools and supplements to make sure that decisions are right for that particular patient.
Yeah. Right. And do the POLST forms or the POLST guidelines, do they vary from state to state, or is it pretty similar?
Yeah, so they all have their different statutes and states, but they're, for the most part, in all 50 states. There is one state, if you're in the state of Maryland, they require it on everyone who's admitted to a hospital over the age of 18. Okay. Other states usually have some indication for it that has some degree of terminality around it. And And other states are just, they let the individual committees in the states kind of decide how it's going to be utilized and how the hospitals utilize it.
Wow.
But what I want to say is, with that form, in and of itself, even that form, the Pulse form, 60% of the time is what we call discordant, meaning it doesn't match up with what the provider documented to what you as the patient actually thought you were agreeing to. Okay.
Right.
So that just leads to a lot of confusion. That leads to a lot of medical errors. And our tools have been able to do this in a way where we structure conversations to basically find out what you really want, to make sure there's concordance, meaning everybody has the same understanding. And our education is not biasing. You know, we're not the traditional practice that goes out there and just wants you to get comfortable with end of life issues, you know, declining CPR or getting a DNR order. That's not what we do. There are practices that do that, but that's not what we do. We're more so about making sure this is holistic for you, making sure this is guided for you, making sure that it is informed for you. Because if you're making decisions to decline life-saving interventions or some form of life-saving intervention, you really need more than just your own opinion on that. You really need guidance from trained individuals who can tell you the risks and benefits of those particular treatments. Because again, that's where the safety is. That's where, you know, all the situations occur, because we have people making uninformed decisions and they're walking around with very powerful documents that could end your life.
So when Cindy and I, we sat through the questioning and, you know, the interview with you and everything. And I don't know, for me, I mean, being in healthcare, you know, I've experienced like the advanced directive. I was in long-term care for a long time, and it's seared in my memory about trying to run down to the nurse's station to get their papers and run back to wherever the code blue is into somebody's room to inform the nurses and stuff. And so I know what that's like. But sitting down and having that interview with you, Dr. Mirarchi, with you, it was very. You asked us questions that were related directly to our health, and then it felt like we were able to get our, you know, instead of just checking a box, you were able to kind of direct us and let us know, what does this statement mean when you check this box, or when you say this is what this means. Is this what you're indicating? And that was, I don't know, that was very comforting to me.
Yeah, it was, because, you know, we've been in healthcare for years, 30 plus years. And even when we sat down with you, there still was a point of clarity. I felt like, just for myself, those forms are confusing. And like you said, there's a gazillion out there. And so if a healthcare worker still has some questions, or it's like, oh, I guess I didn't really realize that, then I can't even imagine the general population. You know, they would not know. They would not know.
So tell us. So that's kind of what we did, is we set up a conversation with you, and we told you some history, some of our medical history, and then you asked us questions. Is that typically how it would work for anybody that would choose to use Mideo for their? Yeah.
So if they're choosing to use Mideo, and just to be very clear, if they're choosing to use our Mideo Health platform to do this, and Mideo, yes. If you're doing it elsewhere, no. You know, it's a varied approach elsewhere. You know, we're hoping to at least set the best standards or best practice standards out there to do medical evaluations, to risk stratify your condition for something that may be more concerning immediately versus something in the future. You know, we do what's called disease-specific advanced care planning and education to make sure that you understand risks and benefits at that point in time for, say, heart disease or lung disease and so on. And then we formulate prescriptions for your medical care. So very similar to you getting a prescription for, like, you know, a blood pressure pill to take care of your blood pressure, or a cholesterol pill to take care of your cholesterol. We're giving you a prescription for your advanced care planning that then gets read into video, and captured into video and paired up with your documents. We don't want people to get rid of their documents and medical orders. We just want to tuck them away in a safer place so that they're actually utilized when it's appropriate to utilize them, rather than people just misunderstanding when to utilize them and so on.
Right. Absolutely.
So we do a lot to clarify with video, and video has been the most accurate as far as in the research models and taking a look, and even in my clinical practice has been the most accurate to make sure providing the right care at the right time. So whether that's to save your life,
Mm-hmm.
figure it out, or to allow a natural dying process,
Okay.
you know. And the good thing about what we do in video is a lot of what we do will actually show you. So again, you're now able to be seen, you're able to be heard, you're able to be understood by that medical provider rather than them guessing as far as what you want.
Yeah. So I want to run through the kind of the process real quickly, Dr. Mirarchi, and then we've got some people in the audience that have some more questions about the advanced directives and stuff. So we had an interview with you, and then we checked some boxes. Then we had another appointment where we actually set up to do like we had the script that was developed based on our information, what you gleaned from talking to us. And then we had a script, we read over the script, and then we recorded it right then and there. And so it's actually a picture, it's a video of me talking about reading that script. The words are on the script, so you don't have to worry about saying the wrong thing. And the person that we did it with was very patient with us. And if we need to start over again, we started over again. And then we got, so then we did that. And when we were good with it, then in a few weeks later, you sent us, it looks like a little driver's license size that would fit in our wallets. And that way we would have those in our wallets. You gave us you gave us one each that had a magnet on the back that we could put on a refrigerator, because that is huge for EMS, for EMS people. That's the first place they look for those advanced directives is the refrigerator. And then you gave us something to put in our cars in the glove compartment. And then we got a little decal that went on the back windshield so that people would be able to, EMS people, when they came on the scene, if something happened, they would know to look directly into the glove box. And I'm just, am I leaving anything out? That was
the card. Looks like a little driver's license.
So that's our typical fulfillment process. And again, it's trying to set best practices, right? You can just do a document or do a consult, but if it just doesn't go anywhere, it's not helpful, right? So our fulfillment process is one of a couple of things. In their medical treatment of you, we teach you how to navigate the healthcare setting. Oh, great, they put the image up. So in our medical evaluation of you, we teach you how to navigate that crucial healthcare setting, right? To answer those questions. How do you want treated in cardiac arrest? Do you have an advanced directive? And we give you that information. Okay. We populate on these ID cards your information. Okay. Yeah. So as you mentioned, what you've received, our typical fulfillment process after you see us and we evaluate you and we create that prescription and we've educated you and so on and we've recorded. Okay. So we typically give each patient 2 ID cards, one for them, one for their appointed healthcare agent. Okay. And we ask them to keep them with their insurance cards and driver's licenses, because that's what you pull out when you go into a healthcare setting. You pull out your insurance card and your driver's license.
Right.
And the funny part about it is we'll always find your insurance card. In healthcare, we'll always find your insurance card. Right? You got to get paid. They got to get paid. Hospitals got to get paid. So they're going to find it. And that's one of our goals in the future, is where we could essentially have our QR codes on the back of an insurance card, or have Mideo on the back of the insurance card so that it's available. Right. Same thing with a driver's license. We're trying very aggressively in the state of Maryland to do this, to make sure that we actually can get on the driver's license, because they're one of the few states that have actually approved it in the state of Maryland. But I'm not sure that anyone's done it yet. And we're trying to give them a solution to do it.
Yeah. Right. Wow. That's awesome.
So you get those 2. You get that in case of emergency magnet that goes on your refrigerator that we want you to use, because again, no matter what state you're in, we train paramedics to look on the sides of refrigerators for advanced directive information. We teach them to look in freezers for vial of life documents and so on. Yeah. And then those other things, again, if you don't coordinate the information, it's very troubling to do something and then see it not be beneficial. So we send information to your primary care doctor or referring doctor. We send it to your hospital medical records department, so it's then available in the hospital that you visit. And we make sure that your attorney has it to make sure everybody's on the same page. But the really important part is that you get a follow-up appointment from us. You get a follow-up appointment for us based on our medical evaluation of you, to see how we've risk stratified you, to make sure that you come back and we update things and we talk again. And we talk about how maybe your lung disease has changed. Not that you have this. Right. Or somebody's lung disease is changing, or their heart failure is changing, or if they had a stroke, or they have Parkinson's. this is such an important thing that this not be one and done.
Right.
If it becomes one and done, all it becomes is death planning for people.
Right.
And that is not what advanced care planning is meant to be. It's not meant to be death planning. There are people in this field in palliative medicine who do population health. They believe it to be death planning because they want to see that this process essentially, if it creates something, results in someone, dying. That's population health, unfortunately. And I can go into stories about how I met with some people in population health and these leaders of healthcare systems and health plans and so on, and their thought process behind it. And I'm going to tell you, it's not very genuine.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's unfortunate.
So let me, so we've got some questions, Dr. Mirarchi, and I want you to answer them if you would. And then if kind of way that Mideo could help with that, if you would, then kind of relate that back. So the
Absolutely. Fire away.
The first question is, it says, if the pulse varies from state to state, what happens if a medical emergency happened outside of someone's home state?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So there are supposed experts that have weighed in on this, and I think their answer is totally ludicrous. They want you to get a form for each state that you potentially might visit. And,
Wow.
and again, that's just, it doesn't make any sense.
So you're going to need a binder of documents to carry with you.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
And in most states, there are reciprocity rules saying that if you had something created in another state, that the state should honor it. But to make a recommendation to a person or a patient that you get 3 forms for 3 states, and again, I'm in Pennsylvania, so we have a tri-state area around us, right?
Yeah.
So we got Ohio, New York, and it's just like, it makes no sense to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So as far as Mideo is concerned, then that card is that I saw the QR code, and so you would be able to kind of carry it from state to state, and then it should technically be able to help. I mean, if God forbid, you would be able to communicate effective wherever you're at, whatever state you're in.
Yep. The one good thing about what we do in Mideo is we don't really run on the premise that we're an advanced directive, even though we are in many states, because you get a paper-based version of it as well. But our video portion of it is technically an audio-visual supplement to clarify what your documents mean. Okay.
Gotcha.
And that in and of itself is enough to give any critical care team, any emergency medicine physician, any trauma physician, enough information to figure out your initial care and treatment. Okay. To get you to that next step. So again, our goal is to prevent that first medical error that occurs, that it can be so devastating.
Yeah. Okay. Our next question is, it says, this is from Sia. She says that I'm not married, but I have a long-term partner. We have made it clear in our living will on our wishes, but we understand our situation may be out of our partner's control. Does this mean Mideo would help them?
Absolutely. The one beneficial, or not one beneficial, but one of the beneficial things that we get from Mideo and patients is that, they don't want their loved one or their decision maker to feel guilty about the decision-making process that then occurs. So with Mideo, we're actually able to help guide that healthcare decision maker. We're basically having you as the person advising them what you want, as well as the medical team as far as what you want, to remove that guilt-ridden process, because it is a very guilt-ridden process. To say provide treatment and have someone end up in a situation you never wanted them to be in is a terrible thing. To not provide treatment and have somebody die in that guilt-ridden feeling, like, should you have done more to save their life? I mean, that's a very guilt-ridden thing. And we need to remove that from people, okay? Because that busts up a lot of families. It does.
Yeah.
It totally
absolutely. Yeah. If you've ever been in healthcare or been around a healthcare situation for any point in time, you see that on the daily, almost, just because it's everybody's different, and everybody's wishes are different, and everybody in the family has different wishes for how they would want their loved one to be. And it really is. It can tear a family apart for sure.
Yep.
Let's see. I've got another one that says, how well known is Mideo during an emergency situation? So
as far as how well known, we are making strides every day. We have patients now in 43 states that have found us. And we have developmental practices happening at least in 15 states now where we have Medicare reimbursing for our care. We have private payers actually now contracting with us in different states to actually provide the care. We have patients in 7 countries, from just people who have found out what we do and figured this was more important to take abroad and keep abroad as opposed to having just traditional paper-based documents. The one thing I also want to touch on here, and I just mentioned it, so I want to touch on this, traveling abroad.
Yeah.
Traveling abroad, if you're in a different country, different rules. Different rules completely. Countries rationalize, even as far as like we're close to Canada, right? Even just as far as Canada, there are laws, processes, and rules and age limits, and where they'll start to restrict and ration care. It's very important, if you're traveling abroad, that you have something like a Mideo, and then we also pair that up with some degree of a product to get you back home. We utilize a program called Global Rescue. They essentially are trained paramilitary personnel and paramedics to essentially go where you are and bring you back home. And if you can't get back to your home institution, your downgrade is John Hopkins. And how much of a downgrade is going to John Hopkins?
Right, exactly.
But that's what we do for a lot of our patients traveling abroad.
Yeah. What about, and this might be kind of a silly question, but when you said abroad, the first thing that popped in my head was cruise ships sailing on, with maritime laws and stuff like that. Can you kind of address that?
So both planes as well as cruise ships and so on. I've had the fortunate opportunity to resuscitate people on both. Just happened to be there, as a person either on vacation or just traveling on a plane. And they have laws and restrictions on those planes and on those cruise ships as far as what you can do. So again, for our people who, and interestingly, that's one of the things we ask for in our history is, are you traveling? And if you're traveling, what kind of traveling are you doing? Because again, we want to make sure that if people are at risk, and we have lots of patients that have bucket lists, right? They want to go on a cruise before they die, or they want to go to Europe, or they want to do X, Y, and Z, but they don't have a plan to get back. And if an emergency happens, they don't have a plan to get their treatment that they want, and so on. So that, again, it becomes a very important thing. And we've been successful as far as with patients that literally have been airlifted from cruise ships. We've been successful with people on planes. And it's been very rewarding to see what Mideo can do for people.
Yeah,
I bet.
Absolutely.
I bet.
Wow.
We got another comment that said, it seems that many older people know about the fridge magnets, but medical emergencies happen to young people. Are young people treated more aggressively due to age bias?
So interestingly, our research shows that young people are just as at risk in the age biases. And mind you, let me also say, the reason they want 18-year-olds and over to start getting advanced directives is because they want a decision. Because if you're one of those unfortunate young adults that did something and ended up either in a traumatic accident, in a brain injured patient, or something that's going to be significantly debilitated for the rest of your life, they want a way to have them stop the spend on those people.
Right.
Again, most of what is actually happening is not very genuine in some of the recommendations. I don't really think insurance plans themselves are thinking that way, but it's then the operational aspects of what actually happened when they make recommendations. And so,
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
I know like I'd said before, when we did the interview, it was very well done, and I felt so comfortable. And there's so Cindy and I are on the road a lot with our business and with our part-time jobs that we have. And we've got the sticker on the back of our van, and we travel around, and and knowing that that's in our glove box, that if anything were to happen, that's very comforting. It's a very comforting feeling. And I can only imagine that, when we travel abroad, we would take those with us. We did take that with us the last time we went on vacation. We took that with us just because it just seemed like it would be just an added layer of, I don't know, protection if something were to happen. So we really do appreciate that.
Yeah. And again, we were talking about how we learn something new every time we talk to you just thinking about our age right now, and if for some reason we had a heart attack it could be highly likely that we wouldn't be, resuscitated.
Yeah.
I'm just like, that just floors me.
So if you had a paper document, I'm going to tell you that chance would be very real. One of the other things, and again, I'll get personal here for a second, but the 15th of November, just a week ago, I have an older brother who is a year older than me, 55, and he had a cardiac arrest, and he had a cardiac arrest from NI, and he survived. He survived. Okay. We got CPR. He was defibrillated. He got to a level 1 highly academic center in Philadelphia and literally had his care botched because when they treated him and cathed him and saw the amount of disease they had, they figured bypass was the right thing. But then they said, well, we don't really know his wishes.
Oh, no.
Right. And then decided to not pursue bypass immediately. So I say this in respect because everyone would always say, well, why get an advance directive then? Why get one if you're just going to screw up with it? Well, I'm telling you now that the playing field is changing, and it's changing pretty aggressively. There was a time in life where we were to provide care first, ask questions later, and the outcome was the outcome.
Right.
Today, there's these experts in this end of life spectrum of care and so on that literally are pushing that we ask your permission first before providing care.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
At times, we're not going to be able to do that.
Right.
Right.
I just had it happen to my own family. We won't be able to do that at times. You have to make a clinical decision to move forward and provide care. That's been the premise of medicine forever. And to change that dynamic now is pretty troubling.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Absolutely.
So we had another question from Raquel. She says, what are the stipulations with minors? Any thoughts on that?
Particularly with what, though, as far as minors, if you can expand on that, meaning do minors do not resuscitate?
So far you've been talking about encouraging people that are 18 years and older. So what about,
Could
if you
have somebody?
like
could
a parent,
have
if you have children, what are your thoughts on?
Yeah, so we do have a few patients that actually do this for their kids, as far as kids that have pretty complicated illnesses because they can't be with their child all the time, right? And they want to make sure that the care is actually provided correctly.
Right.
And I can tell you, there's a lot of biases in healthcare. There's a lot of biases when you see a 18-year-old or even a 10-year-old debilitated patient, as far as how aggressive to be.
Yeah.
And again, that's not my decision. That's that mom's decision or that dad's decision, that guardian's decision at that point in time, as far as what really should happen. I can guide it, but it really shouldn't be my decision to say that person should live or die. It should be them to make, their own decision based on whatever family values they have, belief systems, and so on.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So even if a person, I mean, I don't know, if a family were traveling on vacation and everybody in the vehicle was injured beyond being able to say, it probably would be a good idea to at least have the parents in writing what they want done with their children if that situation were to occur.
Yeah, I mean, and that's hopefully what attorneys do in a lot of what is happening, right? When you do your estate and all this other stuff, that's one of their questions that typically is asked, as far as what happens to your kids. Who do you want to take care of your kids? Who's going to make those medical decisions for your kids and so on? So it is very important. With college students, you go away to college, you're 18 now.
Yes.
You introduced a whole new ball game. Right.
Yeah.
Because you got college students 18 and over, they're adults. Okay.
Right.
You lose that parental control in a lot of situations, and that technically you might not be able to make a decision for them anymore. You hope that the medical teams are going to take that input from a parent, but it's not always the case. And oftentimes, like, the legal system just complicates it because they want guardians and appointed guardians and whoever else. So we have a product for the young and healthy population where they can do this themselves, and they're pretty crafty, right, with phones and everything. And they have apps and they can do it. But it essentially says who to appoint to make decisions for them in a medical emergency.
Right.
So that's something we do recommend for kids that turn 18. And I still call them kids because they are kids at 18.
Right. That's right.
They're still on your insurance. They're a kid.
That's right.
They're still on my payroll.
That's right. So Janice had another question. She was wanting to know, what if someone's Mideo wishes change over time? How would somebody handle that?
Great question. So that's the important part of a follow-up appointment that we make in our medical practice for people when we create these and so on. So, we make sure that if it changes, that it all gets reflectively changed and so on. And our QR codes that are on the ID cards themselves are dynamic, so they never need to change, right? So if we re-record your video, the most current video will always be recorded on that QR code.
That's
So,
awesome.
it's really important to make sure that we do things when things change, but it's also very important that you realize that your documents are there. And if it's a paper-based document, they're going to reflect back to that if it's found. So again, your decisions may change, right? But if you don't go through all those different channels and parts and pieces where you sent those documents, you could be at risk for discordant care or broken care or a medical error. Now, again, that's what we do in our clinical process here as far as fulfillment, to hopefully set the best standard recommendations that if you're going to send it somewhere, it again be followed up to make sure that whatever previously was done was voided and that this newer version is now taking precedence.
Yeah, because like you said in the very beginning, there's lots of paper out there floating around, and I mean, trying to track that down, I think would probably be a nightmare as well.
Yep, so, it sure is.
I've got one other question for you, because I know people will be thinking about this. Is my information going to be safe on here? Is this going to be safe for me to do? Is this something,
good question.
Is this something that's going to be, but you think about the paper documents. So what would you say to them on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is a very important question. And I want to assure everyone that our processes are with the state-of-the-art security systems and so on. So your medical records are kept in high trust medical record systems. Your videos are put in these safest type of Google compliant healthcare platforms and so on. And I'm speaking in generalities here, but I will tell you I spend a lot of money yearly to make sure that we have the right chief technology people involved here to make sure that all of your documents are safe, secure in our databases, and internationally available anywhere in the world in 5 seconds or less.
Wow.
So that's always been our premise. And there are recommendations that are published that you have to ascribe by, but we far exceed those recommendations because we know there's hackers and everything else that exists.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That is awesome.
That's a good question. Yeah. Well, Dr. Mirarchi, we really appreciate you being on here. It just seemed like a really good time of the year to have you on here talking about this with everybody traveling and going to see their loved ones. Maybe it'll give them an opportunity to have this chat with them regarding advanced care. Yeah. So we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us.
Absolutely. Hopefully it gave people some information between the ham and the turkey, right?
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's exactly right.
And one last thing. So how can people find you if they have further questions?
Yeah, simply all you need to do is go to our website, mideohealth.com. There's an 844 Mideo number as well. So it's 844 Mideo for you. But if you simply go to our website or just Google Mideo, you'll come across us and so on. And again, lead by example. If you can do anything else, you're doing it, right? The both of you have done it. Those of you on the show who are listening in, lead by example. Do your own Mideo, talk to your spouse, your family member, get theirs done. You helping, you doing it is helping me set the new standards for what should actually occur in healthcare today for this.
I love it. That's so great to hear.
Oh, and also they can scan the QR code.
Oh,
it was on there.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
All right. Perfect.
Thank you again. And we hope you have a really happy holiday.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Yes. Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Well, that's
a wrap.
That is a wrap. That's
right.
awesome. That was a great, I think we're just going to kind of send it over, and I think we've got an ad to watch, and then
then we'll see you guys next time on Rolling with Ruby. Engines off.
Engines off.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Falling asleep with your head in the wrong position is a pain in the neck. You deserve Tausi Comfort for head, neck, and back support. Go to tausibrands.com and get your comfort on.